Hi everyone, my name is Simran and welcome to this explanatory video on how this UCCX to WebxCC migration tool works. I will also be adding a detailed post on my blog along with the entire source code on GitHub in the next few days. You'll be able to download the app code, run it as it is in your own environment, or even expand it to suit your own customers' requirements. That's actually one of the reasons why I've decided to put everything on GitHub, because production environments are seldom the same for all customers, which means that what is suitable for me in my case might not be suitable for you and vice versa. The idea is that people should be able to modify the application based on their specific use cases. So this is a high-level overview of how this application works. It involves multiple components which are talking to each other, fetching data from one application, doing the translation, handing it off to the next one, so on and so forth. Since we are dealing with two completely different applications based on different architectures, it's going to involve a lot of data translation among different components. For example, WebxCC has a different way of establishing the relationship between entities like queues and teams than how we used to do in CCX, which means that the data captured from CCX will now have to be translated and made compatible with WebxCC architecture. Similarly, we have skill profiles in WebxCC which do not exist in CCX, so on and so forth. Another important thing to note is that the communication with the UCCX APIs relies on standard username password based basic authentication, but the WebxCC relies purely on OAuth, which adds an additional layer of complexity to this whole workflow. Although this diagram shows only 7 different layers of communication between different entities, the actual number of interactions is much higher. I've actually deliberately kept the diagram as simple as possible for brevity purposes. Now, as you must be observing, some of the interactions are unidirectional and some are bidirectional. Unidirectional interactions are basically the ones where one party is sending the request and getting a response in return, whereas bidirectional communication involves multiple interactions between different set of entities. For example, step number 7 here itself covers the entire multi-step OAuth 2.0 workflow, but here it is represented as a single step. Similarly, here in step number 6, WebxCC file is relying upon the OAuth workflow to complete and use the final result of that interaction, which is the token value, to interact with the actual WebxCC APIs. Let's actually go over this step by step. Our first objective is to gather the configuration from CCX that we eventually plan to import into WebxCC. This is accomplished in step number 1. The information that was captured in step number 1 is then stored in an Excel spreadsheet. This is then followed by another cycle where the CCX data is translated into a format which can be relatively easy to decipher for the next phase, where the information is finally pushed into WebxCC. In the next phase, which is covered in step number 6, 7, and 8, in order to establish communication with the WebxCC APIs, we first need to perform the OAuth 2.0 authentication and authorization process, at the end of which we get something called a token value. This token is then used as an authentication tool to submit the information into WebxCC, which is what's finally done in step number 8. Now, some of you may be wondering about why there is a web server component here. So let me give a bit of background on this. The OAuth grant type that WebxCC relies on is called authorization code. If you're not clear on what OAuth is and how different grant types work, then you can either Google it or you can go to my blog, learnuccollab.com, then scroll down and look for a link called OAuth 2.0. Here I've actually covered this in extensive detail in a 3-part series. It's out of scope for me to explain the complete OAuth process here, but let me give a quick overview. One of the critical steps in the OAuth flow is called redirect URI. This is where the authorization server redirects the user to with the authorization code value and something called a state value. Our application then needs to exchange that authorization code for a token, which is then used for the final API communication. In this diagram, the user tries to access an application. The app then sends the request to the authorization server. The authorization server then redirects the user to the web app that's supposed to be listening for the authorization code. The application then exchanges this code for a token value in the final step. Now, if we go back to the first diagram, I have a local web app running on my computer here, which is listening on port number 5963 and is supposed to be acting as the destination for the redirect URI and therefore catch the authorization code value. This is one end of the communication where my machine is listening. On the other side, which is WxCC, we also have to ensure that it also knows about this web application. And we do that by making sure that the redirect URI on the WxCC side points to this WebEx app running on my computer. Now, when the user is redirected, that redirection will come with the authorization code value, which is then exchanged for a token. Now, let's go through a demo, which I'm sure will provide more clarity on this whole scenario. So this is the lab UCCX environment. Let's go over some of its configuration. I've basically set it up for a standard telecom company. It has a bunch of queues pertaining to different departments, corresponding teams, skills, applications, etc. So here it has these applications. Now let's take a look at the queues. So here we have a bunch of queues related to billing, tech support, troubleshooting, etc. Now let's take a look at the resources. So we have a bunch of agents here, and all of them have different set of skills assigned to them. Okay, so here we have multiple teams. Now let's take a look at the phone books and the contact list as well. So here we have two phone books, and each of them has its own contact list. So basically we have everything that we can expect in a typical UCCX based contact center environment. Now let's review the WebxCC environment to make sure that there's nothing already there. So if you see, let's take a look at skills. So there are no skills here. Same with skill profiles. There are no skill profiles. Now let's take a look at the address books. No address books either. Now take a look at the channel configuration. So the basic stuff, the default stuff which comes out of the box, so nothing out of the ordinary. Same thing with queues, the default queues. And let's take a look at the aux codes. Again, nothing out of the ordinary, just a couple of default ones. Let's take a look at the teams. Again, the same default stuff. So it's practically empty, as you can see, except for some basic information which usually comes out of the box. Let's look at the code now. The objective is to migrate voice-related configuration from on-prem UCCX to this WxCC CCaaS solution. Let's run the code. If all goes well, then whatever we just saw in UCCX should be in WebxCC in the next couple of minutes. The code is actually distributed among multiple files, with each file dedicated to a specific outcome. This is the main file, which in turn is going to invoke multiple functions spread across other files. Let's run it now. As you can see, the very first thing that I'm being asked to do here is to authenticate. This is actually the first step in the OAuth flow. As soon as I provide my valid login credentials, this app is going to send a request to the authorization server for the code. The server will return the code and the app will send another request to exchange that code for the token. So let me authenticate myself here. Now this console message confirms that my authentication was successful and the app is allowed to proceed. Let's go back to the code now. Let me undock this window so that we can see it more clearly. Now, as you can see, this is the welcome prompt, where we get a bit of introduction about what this tool is, what it's capable of, and it's now waiting for our response. In order to start the UCCX collection process, we can type Y and press enter. It will then contact the on-prem UCCX system and update us on the progress of each component. So let's do it. As you can see, it has started the collection process and we are getting the status update on each component. So it looks like phase 1 is complete now and our code was able to grab all these configuration details successfully. At this point, we have an option to either stop the program at this time and review the data which has been collected so far, or we can continue with phase 2, where this captured information is converted and pushed into WebxCC. Let's actually stop it and review the file now. As you can see, the file is located at this location. So let's go there and open the file. So here is the spreadsheet which was just created. Let's open it and have a look at the data. As you can see, it has tabs for each configuration component, and those tabs are dynamically filled with the information. So here we have applications, queues, teams, skills, codes, etc. So the file looks all right. I think we can move on to the second stage. Let's run the program again from the beginning, and I will need to authenticate again. Let me undock the window as well, and now we are back at the same prompt. Let's proceed with phase 1. Okay, it's going through all the steps. Now we are back at the same prompt, and this time we will type Y to proceed with phase 2 instead of looking at the file, because we have already looked at the file. Okay, so let's do it. Now let's wait for a couple of minutes while the code completes the translation and pushes the data into WebxCC. Okay, as you can see, it's going through all the steps and we are getting constant status updates here. And it's already converted the data, and now it's pushing that into WebxCC in different formats. So this phase 2 is also complete now, and everything appears to have been done successfully. Let's have a quick look at these console statements. So this is where we decided to proceed with phase 2. So let's start from there. As you can see, we first converted UCCX data into a new format, which is relatively easier to adapt to in WebxCC. So this new information is then stored in a different file whose details are given here. Then we started the final step of pushing this data into WebxCC. We started off with adding different skills, which went well, then skill profiles, then aux codes, then queues, etc. And finally, if you scroll down, address books. So the logs suggest that this entire operation was successful. Now let's go back to WebxCC and confirm that we do indeed have the configuration there now. So we are back in WebxCC now. Let's look at the channels. Let's sort it out by date. Okay, so all the channels are here. Now let's go to queues. Let's sort it out as well. And looks like we have all of them here. Let's open a couple of them and see what information they have. Okay, so these queues already have the team distribution groups associated with them based on the skill profile assigned to the teams. So this one has customer experience team assigned to it. Let's check another one. So this is the sales queue. Let's see what team is assigned to it. It's the digital sales team, which is what it should be. Now let's go to skills and skill profiles. Okay, so yeah, looks like we have all the skills here. Now let's check a few of the skill profiles as well. And yeah, this is looking good too. Let's open a few of them. So we have relevant skills associated with this skill profile along with their proficiency level from UCCX. Let's check another one. Okay, here too we have both technical skills associated. Okay, so this is looking good. So in WebxCC, queues, teams, and skill profiles are tightly coupled together, and skill profiles in turn are associated with skills. So a lot of data manipulation needs to happen for this to be translated from CCX to WebxCC. Now, the administration of WebxCC is out of scope in this session, so I won't drag this video any further. Let's quickly check teams and aux codes as well. So the teams are all here. This is the tech support team, and it has appropriate skill profile attached to it. Let's check the billing team. And this one also has the appropriate profile assigned to it. Let's go to aux codes. And yes, yeah, all of them are here. So this pretty much completes the demonstration of this application. As I mentioned in the beginning, I will be adding a blog post along with the source code on GitHub in the next few days. So please feel free to fork the repo and add more features to it. And thank you once again for your patience and sticking until the end of this video.